Hey everyone, and welcome to week 8. Sorry that we've had kind of a rocky start to this week. It's midpoint in the semester, so I'm sure that you guys are experiencing this too, but it's really hectic and I've been wanting to catch up with all of your grading. But anyways, what I want to do now is I've uploaded the slides that go over crafting an argument. And now I want to go over the argumentative essay assignment so that you have it in your head over the next few weeks as we're reading and you're trying to think about which reading from the semester you want to write your argumentative essay about, and then to go over one, what the difference is between having an opinion versus making an argument, and how to approach the reading that you might want to write about through the lens of how you will make an argument about it. So first, under the read and review folder for this week, you'll see the argumentative essay assignment details. It details exactly what to think about, what it will consist of, but the most important thing is it says what is arguable about the text, what could have multiple interpretations. When you determine what is arguable, use evidence in the text to support your own stance. So as we learned last week when we were talking about rhetoric, what is arguable is any opinion or reading of the text that someone could argue against, but that you can also make an argument for. And rather than just stating your opinion, what you're going to be doing is trying to persuade or convince your reader to, if not buy into your interpretation, at least validate your side of the argument as just as possible as theirs. So I've kind of just broken this down as far as like the 4 basic steps that you're going to approach when you're approaching this assignment. So the first thing that you want to do is just establish your argument, and this will consist of you figuring out which reading from this semester you want to write your essay on and what your argument about it is going to be. Once you do that, the easiest way to start this paper is going to be to craft a thesis statement first. So you're going to craft your thesis statement that says, this is my argument about what this reading is doing. After that, you're going to outline evidence from the text that you will use to support your argument, kind of similar to what we did with the literacy narrative. And then you're at a good place to start drafting your actual essay. So I'm going to make a presentation next week that reviews thesis statements and discusses how to craft a thesis statement for your argument, because the precursor to your draft is going to be a thesis statement and rationale that's due Wednesday, October 14th. So at the end of next week. So you can write your argumentative essay on any of the readings that we've done so far this semester. The Carolina Reader is your oyster. So the first step will be drafting a thesis statement and rationale, which will allow me to preview your argument before you move on to the drafting stage. So as you begin thinking about which reading you want to write about, try to focus on which readings resonated with you or that you found particularly powerful. So the more passionate you are about your argument, the more easily you'll be able to find the evidence for it, and the more interesting the assignment will be. So I just want you guys to really think about, like, we've done a good bit of reading so far, and so I really want you to think about which would be most interesting and helpful for you. A recommendation that I give is to go back and look at your previous discussion posts and my feedback, as many of you have already written really good discussion posts that would inspire a fantastic argumentative essay. So you could always just expand on a discussion post that you've already written. So what I wanted to do is quickly preview the very, very brief chapter that you're reading this week, which is Finding an Argument to Make About Literature by John Pierfield. So one of the most important things that he mentions is the so what question, which is basically what we've been stressing so far as your writing goes, which is the significance of your argument. The so what, as far as why does it matter to your reader? Why does it matter enough for you to want to write about it? He writes, a meaningful essay will give the reader new perspective on the literature about which you are writing and challenge them to understand a story or a poem in a new way. A good academic essay should be argumentative. So he also lists some really good topics that you might consider when crafting your argument. So like a lens to look through as far as what you're going to specifically argue that the reading does. So here are just some very brief examples. I suggest pausing the video and looking over it, just because I don't want this video to end up being like 20 minutes long. But I thought that it would be helpful just to kind of preview some questions that you might ask about readings that we've already done if you wanted to write your argumentative essay on one of them. So, when ensuring that your argument and thesis statement adequately argue your point rather than simply stating it, it's helpful to think back to the Socratic method that I brought up last week. So, I think a lot of the times we confuse having an opinion versus making an argument. So, the easiest way for me to make sure that I'm making an argument instead of just making statements is to imagine that I'm going to basically take my thesis statement and read it out loud to someone and imagine what they would say back. So, if they asked me why or how or the so what would I reply? And am I prepared to answer those questions? If you are, that's how you'll know that you're making an argument and you have reasons to believe what your argument is. So this is just, again, pause the video. It's just a preview of the thesis statement and rationale assignment. And on the right is from the worksheet that you'll fill out when you turn in your thesis statement and rationale. You might want to go ahead and preview these so that in case you want to write your argumentative essay on some of the readings that we do in the next few weeks, you already know what you're looking for before you start reading them. So you're reading like a writer. So just quickly, as you're brainstorming, if you have an idea of what you might want to write about, but you really need help as far as figuring out how to narrow down your argument, you can meet with me in office hours to discuss your argument and we can go over the reading a little bit more. You can go back and look at your discussion boards for that week, see what other people have to say, the feedback that I gave you. Think about some of the discussion questions at the end of the readings in the Carolina Reader, and then think about what readings you actually enjoyed or that moved you or that you felt were saying something very important. So the next thing that I wanted to do is think about the readings that we're reading this week and how you might go into reading them through the lens of, okay, so what if I wanted to write my argumentative essay on one of these readings? What questions might I ask? And what would be the things that I noticed that I might make an argument about? So the questions that I've listed here are not the only ones possible. As long as you guys can defend your argument, then you're good to go. But these are just some questions that I thought might help you understand the readings more and also understand how to approach a reading that you plan on writing an argumentative essay about. So, The Wife of His Youth by Charles W. Chestnut. This one is really strange. So, it's written with irony and paradox, and it seems really unsettling because from the very beginning, we think that it's going to be a story about race, and it is, but it's more complicated because it's about passing. So it's about the period or about inhabiting an identity that isn't exclusively Black and isn't exclusively white. Also within a certain historical context. So these are just some questions to ask yourself that might inspire an argument about this. So, for instance, what is the irony of the blue veins society? Like, really think about what blue veins means and why that might be ironic, considering this is supposed to be a society or an organization that supports people of color. And what is the significance of this irony, and where does it appear elsewhere throughout the story? Then we have this other reading that's kind of similar as far as there's a lot of tension and confusion that we feel when we're reading these. So this one is What We Talk About When We Talk About Anne Frank. This is a pretty contemporary piece by Nathan Englander. It was published in 2012, and this story was actually published in the New Yorker. But again, the same thing. These are some questions that you might ask yourself as you're reading, thinking about, what do I make of this? What is the significance? And, underlining things that you can use to defend your point. So, for instance, our narrator seems to have really mixed feelings, at times really antagonistic towards Mark and Lauren, aka Yerukam and Shoshana. So, why do you think that is? Why does he jump back and forth between liking them and disliking them? And what is the tension between their Judaism and his secularism? What do we make of Deb's infatuation with the Holocaust? Is it problematic? Is it sincere and genuine? What do you think? And then really interestingly, I think, is having read the story, what do you think is the significance of the title? What is Englander trying to say about what we talk about when we talk about Anne Frank, and who is the we that he's referring to? So basically, if you have any questions about any of the readings that you are thinking about doing for your argumentative essay assignment, please don't hesitate to reach out. But these are just some questions to be thinking about to inspire. Take your time thinking about what readings you want to focus on or what reading you want to choose to write your argumentative essay on. And let me know if you have any questions. I'm really excited to read your thesis statements and rationales.